It's the J Bass Today Show. Get ready for a good time, a good time. It's the J Bass Today Show. Get ready to ride.
Welcome to the J Bass Today Show. Thank you so much for riding with me, and I hope you enjoy the show. Season's greetings. God bless you to each of you, and Happy New Year. This is the first episode of the J Bass Today Show in the new year of 2024. Y'all, I cannot begin to express what it means for me personally to be alive and well in this new year and experiencing so many of God's blessings and favor. God bless you to each of you. Thank you so much for joining me. As you see in my background, I will not take up much time because I have an exciting guest who is already starting this year off, changing the trajectory of this show, allowing me the opportunity to do what is in my heart with this show, which is have very real and in-depth conversation about life issues that are normal anomalies for all of us. And so it's a part of life. And as I thought about this guest, and I like to start out with Our Daily Bread, the first thing that I open the book to is entitled Beyond Labels. And this is found in the Our Daily Bread from July 18th, 2017. And it reads, "A church in my city has a unique welcome card that captures the love and grace of God for everyone. It says, if you are a saint, sinner, loser, winner, followed by many other terms used to describe struggling people, alcoholic, hypocrite, cheater, fearful, misfit, you are welcome here." One of the pastors told me, "We read the card aloud together in our worship services every Sunday." How often we accept labels and allow them to define who we are, and how easily we assign them to others. But God's grace defies labels because it is rooted in his love, not in our self-perception. Whether we see ourselves as wonderful or terrible, capable or helpless, we can receive eternal life as a gift from him. The Apostle Paul reminded the followers of Jesus in Rome that at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Romans chapter 5, verse 6. The Lord does not require us to change by our own power. Instead, he invites us to come as we are, to find hope, healing, and freedom in him. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Verse 8, the Lord is ready and willing to receive us just as we are. Heavenly Father, thank you for your amazing love in Jesus. God's forgiveness defies our labels of failure or pride. Today's reading comes from Romans chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. This key verse is verse 8, which says, "But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." All right. God bless you again. Thank you for joining me. Now let me introduce my special guest, Mr. Ian Haddock. God bless you all.
It's the J Bass Today Show. Get ready to ride.
Season's greetings. God bless you to each of you. Welcome to the J Bass Today Show again. I am here with my special guest, Mr. Ian Haddock. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to have him on the show today. It is an honor, it's a privilege. Ian, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. The holidays were rough, but I'm doing a lot better today.
Okay, well, I tell you what, we'll get into that a little bit later because I definitely want to hear what made it rough for you, because maybe something that you learned from it or got from that rough time can help our viewers. part of this show's motto is to encourage because we have been encouraged. And so I am again honored that you are here, y'all. I'm sitting with royalty. I am sitting with someone of notoriety. And so he just filmed on the Jennifer Hudson show. And so now he's here on the Jay Bass Today show. He's doing some big, amazing things. And we actually met a family honored some local heroes in the city, and both of us were honored. And so we became social media friends, and I have been following him. That's how I've been able to see some of the things that he's doing with his company and business, the normal anomaly. And so, Ian, it is again just really an honor to have you here on the show.
Listen, I've heard so much about you before I got to meet you.
What?
Everybody talks about, everybody talks about how great a minister of music you are, how impactful you are just in music writ large. And so, as a person who considers myself a church queen, here I go starting my stuff already. But as a person who considers myself a church queen and also was just like deeply, deeply rooted in the church, both from family and otherwise, your name is just going in and out, and the likes
Wow.
of the likes of Herman, the likes of Richard and the Solomons and all that kind of stuff. Your name just rings loud around the county. So yeah,
Wow.
I feel privileged.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better. And, I kind of want to start here then, since you said that, because a lot of times one of my issues in life has been maybe downplaying what God has put inside of me. And oftentimes we feel like, just like the thought of, and I'm just using this as an example because I feel like I'm sharing this so that you can share something that's going to be in your heart to share. That, okay, in one aspect, knowing that I'm using this as an example, saying that again, you just completed the Jennifer Hudson show. And so why would you feel like it's okay to do Jay Bass little show? You know what I'm saying? But in my eyesight, that first and foremost, the scripture in Zechariah tells us not to despise small beginnings, because one day I really could have that team and not be doing it via Zoom. And if I stay faithful to this, and so I don't know where God will take this particular show. And with you getting in on the ground level of this, and I'm just like, this show has been, even doing it on this level, has been in my heart for years. And so to hear you say that you've been in that position where you're on this person who has a fame and notoriety show, but then you're also grateful to be on this show, you really don't know what that means to me and how that deeply encourages me just to keep going. And so, just thinking on that level, I know that starting up your company of the normal anomaly couldn't have been easy. I know it couldn't have been easy. And then even as you have ventured on to share just being the church queen and those kind of things, that launching out to be you has not been easy. And so I would like for you just to kind of share with us the journey to this moment, what all, because I'm trying to phrase it right. I know the obstacles have not been easy to overcome, especially as a gay male. That alone is an obstacle that is just, it really is a journey. It's an evolution of learning who you are and really coming to accept that. And so could you just kind of share what's on your heart as pertains to that?
Yeah. First of all, I have to pause and give you encouragement that this is not different than the Jennifer Hudson show.
Okay.
Um, the viewership might be different. The fact that she might have an EGOT is different, but she started. this idea when I went into the Jennifer Hudson show. This is really important, just to encourage you. When I went into the Jennifer Hudson show, a person who was around, the same age as myself, and I went in, I was really, really excited, of course. That's a huge opportunity to talk about our work. But when I went in, I was really interested in like, what was her vision? Did she ever envision that she would have this platform? Because she started on American Idol. She has an EGOT. But right at the bottom, and I may post a picture after you post this interview, I may post a picture. At the bottom, when you first walk in, there's the Jennifer Hudson J Hud show. And underneath it, she has 25 with her signature. So I asked the producer, I said, what is that for? Like everywhere I see the J Hud show, I see 25 in her signature. And she said, when she walked into the studio, she proclaimed over this space that she would last 25 years. And I
Wow.
said, see, that's where we got to be connected. It is not her
Wow.
EGOT status, right?
Wow.
It is
Yeah.
not the power or the viewership. It is the fact that she is bold enough to proclaim that this is going to sustain. This is
Yeah.
going to continue to
Yeah.
show up. And that's
Yeah.
the fervor you have to have, I believe, as it relates to the normal anomaly, as it relates to starting the organization and, my obstacles. I think that is the catalyst to success. The resilience, the persistence,
Yes.
the
Yes.
relentlessness, right, is what it takes to make anything happen. I believe that when we get on our face and go to God and say, "Hey, this is what I want," the response is always, "How much? How much do you want it?"
Ooh. Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
much do you want it? And I'm
Yeah.
so clear. I'm so clear that every obstacle is not a burden. Every
Yeah.
obstacle is
Yeah.
not punishment. Even my queerness, right, is my cross, right? That's what I
Yeah.
always say. Even my
Yes.
queerness is my
Yes.
cross.
What a way.
And with
What a
that,
way to say that. Yes.
yeah. And with that, what I believe God does in my life, speaking for me and my relationship with him, I believe that an obstacle is just to get clear that this is what I want. An obstacle is just to show how
Mm.
relentless,
Come on
persistent,
in.
and resilient I need to
Okay.
be to get where I want to go.
Listen, let me tell you something. You have now. This is the difference between the Jay Bass Today show in this season and the Jennifer Hudson show in her season is that you can talk as much as you want to. You have free reign. I don't have a time limit on my show. If I have to break it up into two parts, we have time today. Okay, but I
Okay.
love. This is the first time that I have been doing this show that I've actually taken a few notes, and because I wanted to ensure that I highlighted the words resilient and relentless. And it brought me back to a word that's been huge in my heart in this really the past few months. I've thought about it many times before, but it's really been a lot because of doing this show and two other shows that I was doing. And being in school and a lot of other commitments, it was like, okay, if I'm going to be able to sustain this, it's going to take sacrifice and balance to be able to do this. And so to hear you say I hadn't thought of the words resilient and relentless, but that's not backing down. That's being focused that this is what I want and this is my desire. And so I thank you for bringing those words up. As you even shared about the obstacle, man, life is filled with obstacle after obstacle. And so I want I'm going to get into the cross of the gayness, man. That woo, I'm telling you, we could have a whole show on that. Okay, but just think out, because I want to bring out the purpose of the normal anomaly, what it is that you're doing, because I would not forget to come back.
Yeah.
But some of the obstacles that you face, but also really pinpointing the purpose and how I really would like to focus on how the purpose helped you to get through the obstacles.
That's good. That's good. So, a little bit about my background. If people didn't know, I'm from West Texas City, Texas, which is somewhere between Lamarck and Texas City. It's on the other side of Lamarck. And I was raised on Albert Street. Um, and Albert Street, also called the L, by the time that I was, 9 or 10 years old, was drug infested, led by my family. And so I come from the trap house. We were the trap house. I watched people get beat and killed right in front of my address. I remember one Sunday morning, one of my brother's friends literally beat a man to death for over some cocaine. My brother was shot 9 times and lived. Life flighted to Ben Top. So that was what I was raised in. I was raised in that piece was important. But the other side was because my grandparents owned a couple houses on the street. My grandparents lived right next to me and my mother and my brothers. And their house was the quintessential middle class family house. They were really, really into church. We stayed right across from the church that we went to my entire life. And I found refuge in the church. I was in church every day but Tuesday, from drill team to youth in action to sanctuary choir to youth choir, junior choir, BTU. I was in church. I found all my friendships in church. I found all my connections in church. Church was all I had, and it was the only way to get out of this like tumultuous situation. And so I found a lot of refuge in church. But I was also feminine. I was a soft kid who was scared of the world because what my mama tried to do is she tried to shelter me because the world, i.e., my brothers, were terrible, for lack of a better term. And they were doing what they thought they had to do. But I mean, it was a cold, cold world. So finding family in the church was really important. Around 14 or 15, I started to act on my desires to want to be around men. I was still, interested in women, but from a small town, there was not a whole lot of representation around queerness, specifically like dudes. Because I was soft, but I was still quote unquote a dude because I was raised in a trap house. So I remember being pretty much told like you're either gay or you straight. Like there's you can't be anywhere in between.
Wow.
Thank God I was free from that. But the point is, in that the church found out first. My family at church found out first because those were the people that I was going to school with. Some of them were substitute teachers, some of them were actual teachers. And so that was kind of the start to this tumultuous situation where then my family, including my brothers and my mother, found out, my grandparents found out soon thereafter. And I was given a choice, like, you want to be gay or you want to live with us? I said on Jennifer Hudson's show, I wanted to be gay, but the truth of the matter is, it didn't matter if I wanted to be gay. I just didn't want to be there. And so I chose to not be there. And so somewhere around 16, I had family down in Texas City, chosen family down in Texas City that I could live with and move around with while I finished high school. And once I finished high school, I said, I'm going to the city, being Houston, and I'm gonna find my way. And I remember, this is interesting, but I remember going to this place called Bartini, probably when I was about 16, 17.
Wow.
I know I wasn't 18, but I went to Bartini after not feeling safe in the church anymore and not feeling like I could go there 5 or 6 days out the week because I was a sissy, right? And I remember going into Bartini and being let in by this older man at the door. And I went in and I saw people that looked like me, and they looked happy. They probably were drunk or high, but didn't matter to me.
Right, right,
Um,
right,
they
right.
were happy, and I went upstairs and they were playing this music that felt a lot like shout music to me. I now call it house and ballroom music, but it was the same boom to boom to boom to boom to that I would hear when people would shout at Progressive. And I said, you know what? This is the first time I felt like church in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these are my people, and um, I didn't have language then, but I remember saying like, I don't want to, I don't want to be on drugs. I don't want to, be addicted to anything because that's where I come from.
Yeah.
But I do want this community. I do want this service. Um, and so I didn't have the language to what that would look like. Um, but being homeless and finding community, I knew I needed that. I needed that for myself. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like if I needed it, other people needed it. So then the kind of connecting piece is I was adopted by this random man who was nice enough to let me couch surf for a couple years. And I remember about 2 weeks into it, I was laying on his couch with no money. I decided that I wasn't going to college because what did it matter?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was laying on the couch and he was on LimeWire downloading some music. And he turned around, he said, "Son, I got something to tell you." And I said, "Now I'm about to be homeless again. Here we go. Somebody else is tired of me. Somebody else doesn't see any value.
Oh,
They don't see the
woo.
vision." And he turns around and he says, "Well, I've been wanting to tell you this, but I didn't know how to tell you. But I'm HIV positive." Never being around that, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that that would impact me in the way that it did. Um, I'm sitting with it even like right now,
Mm-hmm.
because when I heard that, like I had never heard that before. Um, Even though I had an issue that I thought I might have like serial converted in high school, I had never heard somebody actually say like, "Oh, I am like I do have HIV." And that was really important to me because one, I was very ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't know what that meant. Um, and then two, it gave me hope in the weirdest way
Okay.
because this person was getting up every single day,
Yes.
catching the bus,
Yes. Yes.
right? Catching the
Yes.
bus to go to work, left work with getting his bachelor's in social work, coming home and still feeding me. A
Wow.
person that
Wow.
was an adult at this time, a person that had a vision and had the intelligence and had the power, but just didn't have connections or family or a culture. Like this person was investing in me, um, and still showing up with something that I thought was debilitating, something that I thought was a death sentence at that time, something that I thought was, you know, a huge burden. He
Mm-hmm.
was getting up every single day, and and that told me, Ian, no matter what you face, you you can live with something, but you don't have to let that thing live with you. I can live with my queerness, but queerness doesn't have to live with me. I can live with being homeless or feeling like an orphan, but an orphan doesn't have to be with me, right? Like I can live with that thing and not be that thing.
That's
And I
right.
can show up, right? I can show up fully as like all the things that I am without allowing that thing to become who I am.
Ian, let me tell you something. I really feel like this is going to end up being, you may be my special guest for like the whole month of January just from this one interview, because there is so much in my heart to unpack. out of all that you just said just now. And I know that in the fullness of who you are, that there is so much more to peeling back the layers of Ian Haddock. Uh, of course, you know, I'm all in when it comes to knowing about being raised in the church. And one of my things, I told you I wrote a book, and a lot of these things are in the book. And thinking about times that my family didn't even go to church. My immediate family is in my parents and my sibling, that when they didn't go, I would get up and ride my bike to church because it was that safe haven. And because you keep bringing this up, this being gay or homosexual really is, it takes up a lot of space in one's life. And because every day you're grappling with your inner feelings of, one, I'm attracted to the same sex, and then on the other hand, I understand that socially this is not acceptable, and especially when you're considering the church. I'm sure that being in the church, you've heard some of the same things that I've heard. Thankfully, you know, but it was because I denied a long time. Even my mom, when she asked me, I denied it. But I knew from a young age, I knew. But to hear that you actually got put out, you know, I didn't really become free until I was after 18, although I'd already started doing some things. Before then, I was still able to stay at home, and thankfully, I didn't have to experience the being put out. But one of the things that when you were talking that really got my attention was how you were raised and how that did not overtake you, because that really could have been your story, that because you were raised around the drugs, raised around the violence, that becomes who you are. But what I heard was that you made a decision that if this is my way out, I'm going to take it. And so you brought it in, but I really want to kind of dive into that, because I'm telling you, we have so many places to go, and I'm trying to focus on one thing because it's like 50 things. It's like, oh my God, he's on my street. But I know it couldn't have felt good, because that's where you were raised. That those are the people that you know. This is home. What I like to do is encourage people throughout the broadcast. And so my first encouragement may be to another young person, because maybe male, female, or whoever they may be, who feels like they're at that crossroad where I don't like where I am, and I do know that part of who I am is not received here. And if I'm going to blossom and really become who I am, that I need to get out of this situation. And maybe they're wrestling with that. What would you say to them to encourage them to go for it?
So I think about the prodigal son, and I think that when
Mm,
people
come
normally
on,
tell their
Ian.
story, when they normally tell the story about the prodigal son, they talk about this wayward child who who left so that they can go live the life they wanted to, and then they come back with their tail tucked between their legs, um, so that they can be welcomed back into the kingdom. And I would offer that as the prodigal son, I had to leave because not just because I wanted to blossom and evolve, but there was some experience that the kingdom couldn't give me. There's some things I had to learn that the kingdom couldn't show me. And now I rule and I reign because there's some things out there in the wilderness that only the wilderness can teach me,
Come
right?
on, dude. Okay.
There's some things out there that only the wilderness can teach you. And
Yes.
and you know, and
Yes.
and the, and the
Yes.
kingdom, when I talk about the kingdom, because I didn't live in a kingdom, I lived in the trap house. But the kingdom I'm talking about is the church. The church
Yes.
is so comfortable with preaching holiness and so uncomfortable with preaching wholeness. The church
Yes.
never wants you to be whole, just
Mm-hmm.
holy.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't talking about the Holy Spirit. I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying holy. They
Mm-hmm.
want you to come in pieces, in broken pieces, so that you can continue your addiction of using preaching and worship as healing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's some wholeness that I needed personally that the Trap House and Progressive Missionary Baptist Church could not teach me. There's some places that I needed to go and some people that needed to be impacted by me, and my narrative could not be cultivated on Albert Street or in West Texas City. It couldn't. But now I can come back there, and I do plan to come back there and do some work there. But now I can come back there and I can do that work. I was connected to a friend, and I have to be careful because I know that as it relates to this, lots of people will watch this, but particularly my people in Texas City. So I got to be careful of who and what I talk about. But I do want to say, I do want to use an example to say that people are dying because people are afraid to use their gifts.
Right. 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 Right.
In Galveston, in my hometown, people are dying because nobody gave them the space to use their gift, to have the tough conversations, to have
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
some
Ooh.
complex things, right? And I refused to die there.
Yeah.
And as it relates to encouragement and empowerment, I would offer, the person watching who, whether it's because of your queerness or it could be because of your blackness, your womanhood, it could be because of your bouginess, it could be because you like to shop at Saks, or it could even be because you are just the orphan or the black sheep. It could, for any myriad of reasons, you don't feel like it's there for you. Like being where you are is good for you. Um, Remember that faith is just the other side of risk. Faith is just the other side of risk. They are the same thing. When you get ready to risk what you need to for what you want, then you create faith. That's how you strengthen your faith, both spiritually and in terms of financially, emotionally, mentally, physically. I continue to strengthen my faith because I continue to take good risks. Um, I continue to think about what are the possibilities. I always tell my friends when they ask me like, how is this happening for you? One, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It's just God. But the other thing is I don't know what I can't do.
Yeah.
I never think about what I can't do. I a lot of times think about what God will do. But as it relates to my ability, I think about what can I do? I
Yeah.
never talk about what I can't do. That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
He can handle that.
Yeah.
I can do this.
What I can do.
This is what
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Ian, man, I'm telling you, this conversation, I'm feeling so blessed because I love a good, real, in-depth, thought-provoking conversation. And I feel like we are there. That's exactly where we are. And as I hear you just sharing on so many aspects, it's one of my thoughts has been for quite some time now that no one really understands what it takes to be me and get up every morning to pursue my dreams and goals. As a Black male who is HIV positive myself, when I hear you talk about the young man who gets up and pursues his dreams and goals in spite of that, because just thinking about the things that we hear and we experience in life, uh, there are many who de- died in depression because of situations like this. And so to be able to get up and to move forward in spite of is a privilege, it's an honor, and it's a strength that you really don't understand that you have until you've gone through that. And as I was hearing you talk about the risk, I'm thinking about, you took that risk to leave home taking that risk led you to being homeless and sleeping on someone else's couch and probably whatever other situations, but listen to me, believe me, I know about couch surfing. I thank God for all the people who have welcomed me into their homes over the years because of decisions I made, searching in search, even from church to church. Like, I play for so many churches because I've just been in search for something. And
Yeah,
there's still something. There's something. And I think all of us are on a journey where we're searching for something. And I love how you said that it's because you took that risk. And even though that risk led to those types of moments where you're on the couch and homeless, and we don't want that. We really don't. We really don't want those low moments, but it is those valley wilderness moments that teach us things that we would not have learned otherwise. And so I appreciate you illuminating that. And it just reminds me so much of my own journey. Uh, now,
that's good. I just wanted to
yeah,
pause real
yeah,
quick
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you could, because that's good to me. I think, as people who are oppressed and marginalized, it is hard sometimes because life does present so many obstacles and things are difficult. We often think that that is what life is.
yeah.
We don't consider the structure we don't in which we live in, the society in which we live in, and how those things interconnect and relate to how we feel about ourselves. For
That's
instance, um, as a black man, as a black man who likes men, you are predisposed to have an HIV positive diagnosis.
mhm,
And people hear that, and society says that it's because of men have a lot of sex,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
And the structure says that it's because of the type of sex that you
Mhm.
have.
Right, right.
But science says something completely different.
Hmm.
It says it's because of the zip code you live in, it's
Yeah,
because of the economics in which you have, it's because of the um, the environment in which you live in, churches and parks and things writ large, right?
right,
Um, and it's because of your connection to those resources, right? Like employment, like money, like cars, transportation, and so on and so forth. And in using those things, when we think about the fact that we are predisposed to this, not because of who we love,
right.
not because of who we like or who we engage sexually or even intravenously with, this really is about language. It's about access. It's about stigma, right? And so, really, there are some very simple things that we can do to change our lives. That includes, I will not let people abuse me. Now, I'm a big boy, so they ain't gonna abuse me physically. But you're also not gonna abuse me with words. I'm
Right,
not
right,
sitting under leadership
right, right, right,
that further
right,
stigmatizes my existence or the existence of people connected to me,
right,
right? I'm not sitting under I'm not sitting under a society that treats me as less than when I'm consistently, because listen, believe it or not, I know you girls are going to be upset, but I know I'm God's chosen one, and I know Jay Bass has to be. Thank you for illuminating us on something very, very personal. I don't take that lightly. I think that's a powerful tool, and however I can support you with my platform and otherwise, definitely interested. But I think you got to be God's chosen one, and it ain't because you play at a lot of churches. It's not
mhm,
because you can do a
mhm,
two-step after doing dialysis all week. right?
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
because you can sing different parts when the
Mhm.
people are not at church, right? Because they don't want to sit behind that pastor. That ain't why you God's chosen one. You God's chosen one because with all this, excuse my expression, with all the shit that you got to go through, you decide to stand up one more day. You
Yeah.
decide to stand up one more day and create the world in which you want to live in. That got to be from God, right? Because only God can give you the strength to continue to smile when all these things, right? And then you walk into these spaces and then they're abusive,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And they're condescending. So I got to be God's chosen one of God's chosen ones, because it's some things that y'all just can't take. It's some crucifixions that happen in my life on a daily that y'all just can't live with. There's some orphaning, right? That consistently I have to embrace, that you all would not be able to understand. And so I'm very clear that I'm in my call because I'm doing the work of Jesus. This is the work of Jesus. Jesus was not behind a pulpit, and he wasn't a Christian. He was doing his work. He was doing his work. He was healing and touching and delivering and pushing and creating. And, listen, I ain't got time to, talk about the religiosity of it all, but I'm just saying, um, your admission is so powerful. That takes the power from the enemy,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
and the enemy, I ain't talking about the devil, but that takes the power from the enemy, whatever that looks like. It
Yeah.
takes that power back, because what we have gone through, and I'm not a person living with HIV, but I'm a person living with homelessness, and a person that's lived with being a sex worker, and a person that's lived with multiple STIs that, I've had to deal with, that's lived with losing his mother and not having connection to home. We've lived with some things,
There
right?
was
And I'm not
something.
trying to
Yes.
play the oppression Olympics,
Yeah.
but I am saying that there are some things that we've come back from that would have took somebody else out.
That's right. That's right.
And I'm just grateful that you continue, even in this moment, to
Yeah.
take the power away from the enemy.
Yeah.
We are healed by our testimonies.
That's right. That's how we overcome.
Yeah.
Man, what I love to hear the passion behind your sharing, because as I'm listening, I know it comes from somewhere. And it is just absolutely confirmation that we're in the right place, doing the right thing, and having the right conversation. I appreciate you so much again for being willing to be on my show, because this is the conversation. This is the kind of conversation that I would love to continue in this show. And even having the background that we have, I believe that's what opens the door for these kind of conversations. Being able to talk to real people who have real valid life experiences. And, when you referred to it being a cross, that really is a cross that you have to bear. As I was growing up, and see, all of me sharing, bits and pieces of my testimony here, and because I consider it a testimony, uh, it's all in the book. And it was in my heart to write the book and put these things in the book, because you're not going to be able to blackmail me and hold over that, oh, you dealing with this, or you have dealt with that. When God does bring me into my quote unquote real winning season, the season that I've dreamed of and believe him for, that anyone will be able, the enemy, whoever that is, will be able to hold over me that, oh, well, he deals with this. I'm getting off, but there was a lady, and she and I were getting to know each other through networking type of thing through school. And we were having some conversations, and I went to one more event, and she said something that really hit home with me. And maybe you've experienced something like this. She said, I don't know how you thought she was saying this to everybody, but it's in some way I knew that she was talking to me. I don't know how you thought that you were going to come around and that we were not going to do a background search on you. And she's saying this to everybody, but I know that we were getting to know each other in just business respect, you know. And when she said that, I'm listening and just kind of the actions and her, you know, that you're referring to me, and I'm thinking, I honor God that I have not allowed my background or my past to hinder me from being in school in this moment, from moving forward with my life, because I honestly could have. So many times I was so disgusted about being who I am. And I was saying about as far as the cross, that there were seasons where it feels like, God, I'm praying to you to take the feeling away from me, to take the desire away from me. Not necessarily what he has done in this season of my life, like as much as I am attracted to the same sex. And what I love about that is because you get to these people who think that it's every person of the same sex. Child, it's so many. Let me tell you that I have no desire. Do you hear me? I mean, no desire. When I see you, I see a brother, I see a friend, but I see nothing else. But then there are some, you know what I'm saying? And so
Hmm.
it's that kind of thought that, you know, and that strained my relationship with God, is I'm praying to you to take the desire away from me. I don't even, when I see someone of the same sex, I don't even want to have any of that kind of feeling for none of them. None of them, none of them. And that just has not been the testimony. That has not been the way of my life. As I see at 41 now, I see that my quote unquote deliverances has come in the fact that it, I'm single. I've been single. It's just me, and I don't see that path forward at this point. And it's not that I'm gonna close myself off from love or whatever, but at this juncture, I'm not focused on it like I used to be focused. And so just thinking about, you know, the cross of this, and we still haven't really gotten into what is it that you are your purpose of normal anomaly, because I feel like all of this that I've just shared fits into that. Uh and I know that some way that yeah, it fits in, and that it will come together in all that we've been discussing.
Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing that. My queerness, I, mhm, I'm thinking about like all the conversations that I had because I have been sheltered in a different way because once I got into that club, I never left. I never left Bartini. Like my family became the people in Bartini. My connections, my lovers, my inspiration came
Yeah.
from, so I've been kind of engulfed and encapsulated within the queer community. And it was not until I started trying to reconnect to home, reconnect to family, and so on and so forth, that I was actually really questioned. Um, but I I've realized long ago, and this is not an admission of an unbelief or not, it's just a statement that I gave to my aunt. I said, um, so I'm going to hell, according to y'all,
Mhm.
and that is why I'm wrong. That is why you don't like me, and that is why you can't support me.
Mhm.
So, what if I told you that I'm comfortable with hell?
Mhm.
What if I told you that I am comfortable
Mhm.
with this quote unquote eternal damnation? Because in this space, this is not about sex, this is not about love. It's about the fact that this shit is too hard. Excuse me for cursing on your platform, but This stuff is too
Mhm.
hard. This stuff is too hard to combat. And what I'm seeing is people with high rates of suicide, people with high
Yes.
rates of unemployment, with
Yes.
people
Yes.
who are hurting.
Yes.
And I just
Yes.
refuse to live my 30, 50, 70, 100 years feeling like this. And if all you got for me
Mhm.
is hell,
Mhm.
what if I told you I accept that? Now tell me why you don't like me.
Mhm. Wow.
Now tell me why you can't love me.
Wow.
Because I've accepted what you're giving. Fortunately, you don't have a heaven or hell to put me in. Fortunately, nothing that is characterized by God has anything to do with you, right?
Mhm.
But if that is your reasoning, let's take hell off the table and actually have a conversation with me regarding what the actual problem is. See,
Mhm.
the truth of the matter is homophobia is not a fear of um homophobia is not a hate for gay people, it's a fear of gay people, right?
Mhm.
And why do you fear something that you're not aligned with?
Mhm.
And it's also, and this is science, that sexuality is fluid. I talked about this or alluded to this at the beginning,
Mhm.
regarding the fact that I had to either like women or like men,
Mhm.
according to what was said. I couldn't have any like fluidity. Most people have some level of fluidity, right? There are very few people that are on the polar opposites. But even then, as you stated, for me, I've been a sissy my whole life at this point. I've been a sissy. I've been an out sissy longer than I've been an in sissy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so as this gay man, right? Um, I assure you, uh, that if I needed to pair my black book with the straight man's black book, with
Yeah.
the straight woman's black book,
Yeah.
I ensure you that I ain't missing no meals
Mhm.
in whatever way you see it. So I'm not
Mhm.
out here trying to convince or coerce anybody. I could really care less. Live your life. But the point is, take hell off the table for me. You can't scare me with hell because you can't put me there. So what else is it? Like what? I mean, if sin is about who we're hurting, who am I hurting? Who am I hurting? I'm not sleeping with underage people. I'm not, engaging. I'm not engaging in rape or rape culture. I'm
Mhm.
out here doing the work of the Lord, of Jesus the Christ. So kiss my ass. But that's why normal anomaly
Yeah.
was created, right? Normal anomaly was created. The very name and the language around the name is centered around all the things that are anomalized, like things that feel abnormal and weird, and society says is not, um, you know, not the norm. Um, let's normalize those things. Let's normalize those relationships. Let's normalize gender fluidity and transgender issues. Let's normalize what it means to be a black person, a black gay person, a black queer person, a black woman. Let's normalize talking about pay inequalities and pay inequities. Like, let's do that work.
Mhm.
Um, this is my ministry. This is my church. I take it very, very serious, because people are, this society that's created by white, paternalistic, patriarchal, supremacist,
Mhm.
evangelicals,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
that we have subscribed to, in many different ways, and created infrastructure to support, um, their supremacy and paternalism, through Black spaces,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
specifically Black churches.
Mhm.
And I know I'm being hard on the church on this show. I did not mean to, but I love I love the church. It's like
Mhm.
it was my refuge. It's like my home has been taken from me. Um, even though I'm doing the work that I think the church should be doing.
Mhm.
Um, But still, even in that, it was created to do that work and to tell our stories and to put us in power. And I have to say this, as I close this statement, I have to say that another reason why I supported this, even though I intentionally didn't know any backstory, it's a part of who I am to allow people to tell me who they are by them versus to inquire any other way. But before I knew any of the information that I know now from this interview, you are doing that work. You giving me this platform. You giving other people this platform. You are doing that work. Silence is violence, and silence is death. When you give people a place to ideate and to partner in thought and to give the knowledge or the experience that they give, that is freedom, that is liberation, that is God to me. And that is why Normal Anomaly was started, to create just this dialogue and these action items that made people more free. Listen, I still go to church because there's some power in a lot of churches. I love church, and I see the value. It's really important to me and to the Black community at large. I love church. And I especially love church when everybody wants to be free.
Yes. And whole,
And
like you said before.
and whole.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
you can't be free unless you whole. You
Yeah.
gotta be whole and becoming whole, right? Because it's a process. You gotta be healed and becoming healed to be free. Like that's a requirement of true freedom. Because freedom allows you to be full of yourself and becoming full of yourself. Like it has to be like this constant cycle. And so yeah, that's why I needed Normal Anomaly. And I'm glad that people are, embracing it. But I needed Normal Anomaly because there are some people who have been thrown away. I have this one story of somebody that is my mentor. I call him one of my pops. He's my pops. When I met him, he was the smartest guy I ever knew. He is charismatic. He can thrill a crowd. He sings in the choir and just charismatic, just super charismatic, super fun loving. First man I knew, a gay man with a 14-year relationship. He had 2 homes and nice cars, and I said, "Shoot, I can hope for that."
Yeah.
And a couple years later, he was going through a breakup, and in the breakup, we found out that he had some substance use issues. And as a person that was raised around substances, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know what to do with that. I can't mess with that." But my spirit was vexed because everybody was supporting his partner and nobody was supporting him. So I went in, I talked with him and found out he had been feeling lonely a long time before he got engaged with crystal methamphetamine, right? Like he had been looking for a way out a long time before that. And nobody was there. So over time, we've gotten closer and closer and closer and closer. My big pops now, but I tell that story because how many of us, not queer, don't have to be Black, don't have to be a male, you don't have to be gay, but there's so many of us that in our darkest moments, nobody was there. And instead of remembering those moments when we kick everybody else out, right? If we remembered the moments when nobody else was there, right? And how that felt, then it would be a lot easier to embrace people and to love people, not through their things. Because the people that, when you needed people, you didn't need them to love you through anything. You just
Yeah.
needed them to love you.
Yeah.
You didn't need them to have the answers. You didn't need them to have the prayers. You didn't need them to, you just needed them to love you. You just needed somebody to touch your hand. They didn't have to say it's going to be okay. They didn't have to say that they knew what you were going through. Just
Mhm.
touch your hand.
Because you don't
Just
know.
touch your
That's the
shoulder.
truth. Yeah.
Because you don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like really important to think about that. And I don't know. I felt like I was rambling, but I just feel like if nobody hears anything else, just remember the time that no one was there. And remember that all you needed was somebody to love you, period.
I don't think you ever ramble. I love to hear the wisdom in what you're sharing because I know it comes from a place of having gone through so much. And what I heard about the normal anomaly, or what I received impartial, is that a lot of the things that we ostracize and that we make as if it's just this opposite world of experience is normal. These things are happening to people every day. There are people who are living in these situations every day. We're trying to make it as if it's if it's out of space or something like that. I'm just saying that, but it's a foreign thing. But this is the normal experience of people, as in homelessness, as in being queer. There are people. It's been a fight for this for years, and even as you brought up about the Caucasian paternalistic, and thinking of how, I just took U.S. history 1301, and I've been sharing this here lately, but at first going into that class, I was like, why do we have to take this? I don't care about history. Music is my thing. But as I got in and I started to hear different things, and it's not that I didn't know about history before, but seeing how even in what they call the Great Awakening, that evangelicals in the
Hmm.
Confederacy, I call it the Confederacy, even though it was at that time, that they were spreading. These are the reasons why we have slaves, and even justifying things from a biblical aspect as to why they were perpetuating this message and owning slaves. And you know, as I hear you share, I know that we have this platform, that we have this ability to learn because ancestors before us did what we're doing today, and we're breaking the mold. They fought for us to have these freedoms. I just said this in the last broadcast, that just being able to read, to be able to write, and have these opportunities, they were not afforded to our ancestors because of this oppressive system that we still live under, that they implemented to try to keep us down. But look how we're rising. We are coming out of something that, and have come out of something that it looked like we shouldn't have evolved out of. And so even in that, it gives me hope that there is so much more that we can break through and bring forth for the coming generations, as they did for us, that we're experiencing. When I think about the hope that you shared about the gentleman, man, there's so much, because I try not to share too much from my aspect because I want to hear yours. But when I'm listening to someone, I feel like that's the mode of conversation, is I'm hearing you share, but it's resonating with me in some way of my own experience. And when we see others, when we're exposed to someone who has greater, like you're seeing this man who has the multiple properties and doing great things with his life, but then he has that one area of his life. And
Hmm.
because he needed help that he couldn't necessarily find, what do you expect?
Hmm.
That's my thought. Uh, as someone over the years, I have plenty of videos, plenty post via social media. I'm glad to live in the social media area because now I've posted so much, I've shared so much, that when someone comes at me with something, you can't say anything about it because I've been reaching out for help. I've been asking for help in multiple ways. And when you don't receive that help, you're crying out. People say you should say something. You should vocalize your need. But when you vocalize the need and you still don't receive the help that you're looking for, what more do you expect if that person's life begins to crumble in ways that you didn't expect? And so when you said that, it really hit home. First, in the aspect that you have someone that you look up to, that you can say, man, if with all that he's going through, he can achieve this level of success, that means that I have hope I can do that too. That really stood out to me. And then also the fact of this man, also that same person that causes you to look up in a way, also has this issue of running to something that is detrimental to his life, but the only way that he saw to be able to handle the things that he was dealing with, and that's the sad part about life. Is, to me, that's a normal anomaly too. That's
Hmm.
We run to things that aren't necessarily good for us because that's what seems to be the way out. That's what numbs the pain in some kind of way. Yes, I know it's not good. Yes, I know that if somebody knew that this was my thing, that they might turn their backs on me. But this is how I'm able to get up. This is how I'm dealing with life in this season because it's just been that rough. And I know you can understand life being just that rough.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, I really appreciate you and Normal Anomaly. And my thought about church is souls are at stake. That has
Hmm.
always been my biggest thing. While we're pinpointing the different issues that people have, the real crux of the matter is that that person's soul is at
Yeah.
stake. Their being, who they are, their happiness, their joy, their peace, all of that is at stake. And oftentimes it seems like we care more about the person's issue or their cross that they're having to bear versus their well-being, their spiritual well-being. And that I've I've been to Bartini's, I've been to a lot of different clubs and different spaces, uh, but it's just not who I am. You
Yeah.
know, I didn't stay there. I could go and just chill and hang out if somebody invited me. I don't mind going, but if I'm planning to go do something fun, that's not my place to go. And
Hmm.
so I've remained in church, and under subjection. What I understand, even in doing an interview like this, in writing a book like I wrote, and so many other things that I've shared, it drives me out of serving in certain positions in church.
Hmm.
It drives me out, or disqualifies me, should I say,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
having certain positions, disqualifies me from serving at certain churches, because if they know this, there is no, we want Jay Bass to be here because he's this. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so I
Hmm.
understand that. And what I honor God for is now that I'm free from that, because if that is what disqualifies me, I don't want to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
And so, I'm telling you, I can probably take what I've heard you share today and do my own 50 broadcasts just from this conversation today, because you have impacted me in thought in ways that I'm glad to have someone to have this type of conversation. And so, uh, just for time's sake now, because we can do this, we can continue to go on and go on, and I can have you back however you want to do it. I would love
Yeah,
to
you
have you.
can, you can definitely have me back.
Awesome.
I'm always open. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. Well, y'all heard it here, because all right, 'cause he will be back. Okay, so then to close out this particular broadcast, what is it after all? Now I want you to consider not necessarily what we haven't discussed, but out of all that we have discussed today, mainly probably towards people uh, who would really understand our walk. Because I want to say this too, that as much as I've heard from you, in thinking about I understand. In some aspects, I understand. But we come from such different backgrounds because I wasn't raised around uh, the drugs and the all that around my household. Although my father was on drugs, and was missing a lot because of that, and I was raised in a home with the abuse and the violence between the parents. Uh, but it still is nothing compared to your experience. So when if I would say I understand, it wouldn't mean that I fully understand what you are dealing with, what you have experienced, because each of our walks is different. But in the measure of understanding what someone else who has experienced something similar to what we have experienced, what would you say to encourage them just to keep going, to be free in their evolution? Because even in that, a lot of times as we evolve, we're not necessarily under some oppressive regime. We're not free to evolve, because when people see your evolution in certain ways, then they want to oppress you. What would you say to encourage that person?
Mm. I would say, I would say that, when you are growing and evolving, um, that the only thing, mm, one of the ways we can learn is from weeds, because weeds in whatever you're growing, most flowers or vegetables are very difficult to grow. I do not have a green thumb. I'm always killing something. But what I will tell you, as I'm trying to have a flower bed in front of my house, is that the only entity down there that does not ask for permission to grow is weeds. And so we can learn something from weeds. Even though it is difficult for us to grow, we got to stop asking for permission to be better and to do better and to blossom and open up and be, that sweet fragrance, that beautiful thing to a person's eye that we need and that other people need, right? Like, stop asking for permission to grow, to evolve, to change. And I truly believe that, like, if you lean into excellence, you lean into, what us church folk call God's will, which I think is just being excellent, resilient, and relentless towards your goals, right? If you lean into that, um, the universe, which God owns, responds. It responds, and that abundance that everybody is desiring, you receive it when you really rely on God, i.e., relying on your gifts, relying on your relentlessness, your resilience, and your persistence. When you do that, something about life just opens up, and it's not always immediate. It's not always easy. You do have to be trained. You do have to, seek assistance and therapy and all that kind of stuff, because your gift is also your thorn in a lot of cases. And so like, yeah, it does take work. It does take a lot of work, and it is isolating. It could be lonely. Um, but the same pressure that busts pipes makes diamonds. So, which one? Which one are you? You know what I mean? So don't ask for permission to grow.
As you said, all I heard was it's worth it. It's worth
Yeah.
it. I look at this season of life and think about the moments where I did want to commit suicide. I was depressed and done with the life in some aspect. And even those moments were worth it. I'm sure that you can see, even though I know being homeless, because I've been there, that being homeless was not a happy experience. It was not something that anyone wishes. But going through that to have the wisdom, to have the knowledge, to have the strength that you have today. No, it wasn't easy, but it was worth it. It
Oh
was
yeah,
worth
I mean, and that's a good example as we, as we close this up. That's a great example because going back to that wilderness piece, my mom didn't own her home. My grandparents owned my mom's home. Our home burnt down twice. So I was already having triggers around being homeless. When I left to be homeless again and somebody took me in, I was always triggered around being homeless. I've been put out several times. I've not worked several times. I've moved to different states several times. And I did not learn out there in the wilderness. I didn't understand. I didn't understand we were poor. I didn't understand how to make money. I didn't understand the importance of having a job. I didn't go finish school, like none of that. I didn't do anything. But at some point, when God got ready to give me my next,
Yeah.
I was telling my mentor the other day, I was telling him, I said, all I all I told God is I wanted a house because I didn't want to be I didn't want to be homeless anymore.
Okay.
And in 6 months, I don't know how I bought a home, but I'm a homeowner. I went
Okay.
from not having a home and I learned a lot. And I mean, there was things I learned about credit, and I started taking care of bills a little bit better, and I started working a little bit longer at jobs. There were some things that happened in
Yeah.
that experience,
Yeah.
but all of that led to you can't put me out of this. You
Yeah.
can't put me
Come
out of
on.
this.
Come on.
You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
me out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And see,
yeah.
you learn that your words, resilience, and your relentlessness in that area was birthed because you were tired of being homeless. And there comes a place of that. There comes a place that I no longer want to live in this type of situation because, and I want to say solely because I'm sure there are other aspects. I won't say solely, but mainly because you've been through and experienced being homeless. Now I understand this is something I do not want to ever experience again. So I'm going to manage my money better. I'm going to do all of these things different because I've been through that situation. And so, man, I really thank you. I'm telling you, I'm stopping. That my home pastor's mother used to say, I'm gonna hush, but I'm not through. I could talk to you probably. I can see it. We could have this conversation for the rest of the day, if not for the rest of the week, because there just seems so much more to peel back. But I want to thank you so much for being my guest, Ian. I'm telling you, you probably freed me in a way that I didn't even know that I needed further freedom just by having this conversation today. And I'm really looking forward to what God has in store. And I'm so grateful to see what He is doing in and through your life. I thank you for walking out your life's journey and process because I know it's not been easy. I hear that it has not been easy, but again, I hear that it has been worth it because you're here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you for real.
Yes, sir.
It's the J Bass Today Show. Now I'm telling you that it's your attitude. I have an attitude of gratitude. Lord, you've been good to me. Yes, you have.